Hello Internet, I'm HamsterBomb.
And I'm Zach.
And this is HITBOX, the gaming podcast where we talk about whatever we darn well feel like talking about. Thank you very much. And today, visually wise, I'm going to be playing a game you've never actually seen me play on here yet, which is Dark Souls.
Dark Souls.
Dark Souls!
I hate this game.
I love this game. And this might even come up at one point in our discussion today, but it's really just kind of relevant to the discussion. For those of you watching, I am going to be playing New Game Plus, so I'm probably going to be running through in an early environment much easier than it really should be at that time. So don't take any mind of that, but still, I wanted to make sure that we got a chance to play something that fits the discussion today that also I know very well and I can kind of ignore.
And what's the topic of discussion today, Alex?
Well, just in case nobody reads or just kind of likes our stuff so much they clicked on it for no reason.
Thank you.
We're talking about remakes and remasters today.
Okay.
And so you may notice this is not the original Dark Souls that I'm playing. I'm actually playing the remaster for... I'm actually playing it on the Nintendo Switch. And since we're actually kind of talking about this version...
Right.
There is some weird quirks to remasters just in general that as we get new versions of games, there always seems to be like some give and take somewhere.
Yeah.
And in this one in particular, the original Dark Souls is, I believe, an early PS3 game.
Yes, early PS3 360, yeah.
Yeah, so the early PS3 era, and when this got, eventually got more, like, DLC and added bonuses and stuff like that added to the game, they were porting it to other systems, and eventually they combined together some DLC, some hotfixes, made it run it HD, and put it on everything, as they should have, because this game's outstanding. And what was a big takeoff from the Switch version? I thought that guy just killed himself.
Yeah, well, he finally did.
Was there's this weird button mapping problem.
Yeah.
Only with Switch, and I was telling Zach about it before we started here. I actually had to button map manually in the Switch itself to say that A is B and B is A, because the game, for some reason, doesn't let you switch that, even though they let you button map everything else.
Yeah, no, it kind of goes by Xbox newer PlayStation controller rules, yeah.
Right, it's odd. But anyway, yeah, that kind of happens when we get remakes. Like, honestly, the game looks a lot better than it used to. There's more content, and I can play it on a newer console, and I don't have to hunt down a PS3 or the original copy of the game in order to play it. I even downloaded this on the eShop. So there's a lot of benefits to remastering or even remaking games. This, however, is not a remake at all. So before we get into talking about a bunch of remasters and remakes, I figure let's talk about what makes them different. What are remasters and remakes?
Right.
Because there's a big difference, and I feel like a lot of people actually screw this up. They don't seem to understand that there's a big difference between them. So, for example, since we're in the Souls theme at the moment, Demon Souls, the recent PS5 game, is a remake of the original, also for PS3, I believe, right?
Yep, PS3, 2009.
Yeah, so from that understanding, like, the whole game was built from the ground up, but used the original as a source of... Sometimes it's just inspiration, and they're going to go wild with what they can do with a remake. We'll talk about some of them later that will go hog wild with just completely redoing what their original concept was.
Right.
But then there's also other remasters and remakes, or just remakes, that will rebuild everything from the ground up, but at the same time, they're not really, like, sacrificing too much, but they're changing it up so much that it's still the same thing, but, like, maybe they fixed a lot of gameplay issues. They may not have kept animations the same. They might have redone motion capping, dialogue, that kind of stuff. And it's when someone's super faithful to remasters or remakes, there seems to be a lot of give and take. People either, love them or they hate them. There's not a lot of in between.
Right.
Like, for example, I don't want to get too far ahead of myself. There's the Resident Evil 4. We will talk about this more later.
Yeah.
Resident Evil 4 is being remade, and people are either outraged or super excited.
Yeah.
And it's almost like there really is no in-between at all with that.
Yeah, right. For a game so beloved, you'd figure there'd be more people like, more Resi 4, but then it's like,
Right.
oh,
Rubbish.
wait. Yeah.
I don't want to get too much into the Resident Evil thing, because I know that will take us a while to really cover that and be satisfied with how much we've covered.
Exactly.
So how about we just try and talk about, quickly, why would you even remake something versus remaster it? Remastering, you would think, this has to be easier, right? Like in this Dark Souls situation, we don't need to rebuild the entire game. That's going to take a lot of time and money and effort.
Exactly.
Why don't we just get back in the original source file, assuming you still have it, Square Enix, and actually update the game, change its output, because now it's going to be running on new hardware. You're not stuck to dealing with what the PS3 was limited to. You can do what the Nintendo Switch can do. So in that sense, yeah, remastering financially makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, it makes a lot more sense, and two, especially for something that might not be quite so old. Like you said with Dark Souls, it just makes a lot more sense, to not throw the baby out with the bathwater and just completely redo the whole thing.
I still think this game looks beautiful.
Oh,
There's a lot of very beautiful scenic parts of this game.
They added quite a bit to actually make this one stand out from the original.
They did, yeah.
And too, it's like it as a means to like bolster sales and whatnot. Yeah, it makes again some sense, and maybe there isn't a whole lot of issues in the original release to warrant a complete remake.
Right.
Just like when we were transitioning from the PlayStation 3 360 era to the Xbox One PS4 era. Remember how a lot of games like The Last of Us and Tomb Raider were HD up-resed or whatever for the new consoles? They were remastered in essence. Similar issue, to be honest with you. It's like, because they were only just from like not even a few years back, some of them, when they were initially remastered.
Right.
And it was just there just to give people a new reason to get a new console if you had missed out on it, or, just to see what was going to be coming for the near future on this new generation of systems.
Right. It's almost like the Wii U, since so few people bought it, it made a lot of sense to just simply remaster or port. Porting is
different.
A part of it, but yeah, it is a different thing. And saying that something is just simply ported, you still have to do stuff to it. Say, for example, Nintendo makes a direct tomorrow, and they announce that they are going to be remastering that Star Fox Zero from the Wii U and bringing it to the Switch.
For some reason, yeah, they decided it was a good idea.
Right, but the big thing they're saying is, oh, well, the gameplay is now fixed up. You're obviously playing everything with the Switch. There's a way we figured out how to get the gyro, the first-person thing to work. That is not simply a port, and that's an extreme example, but when you try and port something, you're changing what that original hardware did, which is why I have button mapping control problems with this game.
Right.
So inevitably, when you just say you're porting something, you're like soft remastering it. We tend to focus more on the graphics and the gameplay when we're talking about remastering, and not so much like, little things that we just kind of expect that they would do if you're going to port a game.
Well, and also, too, it's also just a huge thing of nomenclature and misnomers at this point. Like, what exactly do each of these things mean? And, how does it, like... I always love that bit. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I do too.
That Wyvern just coming in like, nope.
Yeah, we'll have to deal with him later.
But, again, it's just like... what really does constitute as a remake or remaster? Because, like I said, it's all a matter of not only perspective, but just like, because, like with the port, you're just literally taking the game that it was originally released on.
Same files and everything.
Yeah, same files and everything, and just updating some compatibility between systems, and there you go, port. Whereas like a remaster, yes, it basically takes the original game, but it adds a lot of new features and quality of life stuff, like up-resed graphics, new sound maybe in some instances.
Voices sometimes.
Yeah, but
things that really like couldn't fit on the original if it's a cartridge or a disc.
Yeah, but at its heart, it's still the exact same game.
Yes,
basically.
And that's usually the goal, to make it verbatim the same thing. Don't mess with it.
Right, and I never understood. It took me the longest time to differentiate between all those different like names too, because it's like they kind of get thrown around interchangeably, so it just kind of muddies what the heck you're even trying to get across.
Right, so I want to make sure we kind of cover today a few examples, say why one is what it is, and what we kind of expect when we're getting a remake or a remaster, and why they're very different.
Right, because a remake is basically taking what's there and just reinterpreting it.
Yeah, a lot of the way that I feel about it is like, if those developers could, at that point in time, jumped forward and had the capability, the technology and the time and the money to really make the game that they originally did in the past,
Right.
but make it in modern day, what would they do? What have they done differently? And to me, that's what makes something a remake.
Yeah, for sure.
And building it from the ground up is mostly a very important thing. Because obviously, if you were doing it in the future, you wouldn't be porting over a bunch of stuff that you didn't actually have.
Yeah, right. You just save yourself the trouble.
Mm-hmm.
Keeping it Souls-related,
Mm-hmm.
like you said, the Demon Souls remake. Because that game, like we said, came out on PS3 originally back in 2009, and they remade the entire thing for PS5. Basically rebuilding the whole thing, all new meshes, all new engine, all
And
new everything.
good thing they did. It runs beautifully.
Yeah, it looks so good, and it looks like it plays a lot.
The loading is insane.
Yeah,
It's
such
just
fast.
boom, you're in the next area. It's
Exactly.
crazy.
That's the power of an SSD drive, baby.
I think that kind of covers that because it's a lot to it. You feel
Yeah.
like it's something that's simple and we should all just kind of know. But I've heard a lot of, especially younger generations of gamers, and by younger compared to us, like people even in their 20s,
Yeah, right.
radically misinterpreting what a remake for a remaster.
Like I said, the terms kind of get thrown around interchangeably. It doesn't help when marketing can't even get it all straight.
Yeah, that happens.
So, and that's where a lot of the confusion comes in. You just kind of, like I said, for me, I just had to make my own definitions. Yeah, so you can jump
This
to
is where you
yeah.
jump. Yeah, you're right.
But you have to kind of make your own definitions as to what each thing means. And so it's just like, because we got a lot of, like, terminology for, like, a remaster. That was from, like, the recording industry, like when you remastered old albums to take out the scratches and stuff. It's like,
So
well, what
it's
does that mean
already
as a
not
video
interpreting
game?
much. Yeah, and it's already in a genre where we're kind of messing this up already because the genres in video games don't make any sense. I am playing Dark Souls. What is the genre of this game?
How does a remaster just translate to video games? Like, are we just remastering the sound then? Are we redoing the entire game? It's like, it makes no sense. Language is weird.
Yeah, I'm happy that we have two words to describe these because what you can do to a video game changes so drastically.
Yeah, you gotta roll through those barrels.
Yeah, I know.
Why don't you roll?
Because I might have fallen. This is a safety first game, Zach.
I don't care. You roll through barrels, darn it. That, like I said, that's the way I interpret all that stuff. Anything else you wanted to talk about before we moved on?
I think we can start running through these and actually talk about some of the games because some of the ones we want to talk about, we want to cover the gamut. Some are really good that we think definitely should have happened, and others I think happened because money.
Yeah, pretty much. Like one of those ones, it might have been for money. How about we briefly touch, or as briefly as we can, talk about Metal Gear Solid: The Twin Snakes.
I might eventually review this game.
I think you should. From what you've always told me outside of like your review.
Yeah. There's a lot to say.
Yeah.
And, that is a good instance of saying that it's a remake. Say if someone's reviewing a game.
Yes.
And there's a remaster that exists. You would expect them to touch on and say, oh, if you play the remaster, these are the little things that you're going to expect to see. But a remake is a different thing. It is not the same game. And you need, even though it's covering the same story, might even look the same, might even have the same voice acting.
Yeah.
But it's not the same thing. And I think, and correct me if you don't think this, I think Metal Gear Solid on PlayStation 1 is one of the best video games ever made.
No, I agree with you. It was it was a landmark title and a sign of things to come in terms of video games being more cinematic and being more immersive in terms of not only storytelling, but how, everything is like, where did he come from?
What threw that at me?
That
where
boy.
Was he following me this whole time?
Yeah, he was.
I didn't even know he was there. Oh, and he dropped something. That was funny.
Oh gosh. Anyway, but yeah, so it's like
Firebomb.
Yeah, it was a landmark title that was a sign of things to come. Yeah.
Right, but Metal Gear Solid Twin Snakes. So what this was basically them trying to make a remake of this game in the graphical style and gameplay style of Metal Gear Solid 2, but putting it on the GameCube.
And on paper, that doesn't sound too bad.
No, that sounds cool.
Yeah.
However, in practice, when you actually put that together, the original level design and concept design of what Metal Gear Solid was for the PlayStation does not at all work when you give it Metal Gear Solid 2 capabilities. Now you can go in first person, break all the puzzles. And we're going to talk about breaking puzzles in remakes later, hopefully. A certain
Yeah.
Pokemon game did it really badly.
Uh-huh.
What do I need to level up? Good lord.
You can't.
No, that'll be a while.
We're coming back later.
Yeah. So yeah, they really had to compromise a lot of stuff. Even the original voice cast was not going to be there, and supposedly David Hayter had to give up some of his own, or even voluntarily gave up some of his own pay in order to get the whole cast back to re-record, because the original recordings for the audio for Metal Gear Solid wouldn't have worked, because you could actually hear in the background when you upscale it or something like that for new audio compression, you could hear people talking in the background in the recording booth while they're doing it.
Oh, wow.
So the actual audio had to be scrapped. You can't hear it on the PlayStation, like, at all. Right. But it's something to do with, like, up-resing the channels of the audio. It was obvious. And they were like, we can't do this. We have to re-record everything. Normally, you would expect, if you're going to get new audio, or even if you got the exact same voice cast, to do their lines again, it'll be just as good. But something about the delivery in that one doesn't sound quite right. And more so, the problem is the gameplay of Metal Gear Solid 2 completely breaking what that original game was. I think they even gave you a suppressor.
Yeah, they did. They gave you a suppressor.
You got like a silenced pistol, and you beat everybody with that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Like, the game cannot stop you.
Well, not just literally a suppressed pistol, but a suppressed tranquilizer pistol, which they don't even take into account the reason why it was even in Metal Gear Solid 2 to begin with.
Yeah, that's so much.
Because
whoa, that guy was going hog wild.
Yeah, because in Metal Gear Solid 2, the tranquilizer was there to serve as an incentive.
No, it's too early in the game for that to happen.
Yeah, that's not a mimic. No, but it's there to serve as a means of a non-lethal playstyle, the way that Snake probably would try and do. Whereas, and you actually get bonuses for using it.
Right. I know. It's like, it's incentivizing you to bust the game.
And also, but, they don't even give you anything for using it against bosses or enemies in the Twin Snakes, right? The suppressed pistol there. Yeah, so then what was the point of including it, besides it was in MGS2?
Because it was in MGS2, and that's really it. And another thing, when they remade it, for some reason, the cutscenes, the action, the over-the-top Matrix-style ridiculousness gets tuned up so far. It's no longer like B-movie funny campy. It's like just corny, and it feels just like nothing's landing quite right.
That is a matter of opinion. I think some of those are amazing.
I have problems with some.
I know.
When like what is it? Kevin Baker, I think, like, forgets Meryl's number.
Oh,
Snake like does like some ridiculous like action movie back, like, and then like draws his gun on him to like shoot him in the head. Like, dude, like, that's not even.
That's not in character.
Yeah, it's not even in character. It pulls me out of the game.
No, and I get it.
Yeah, and where had they, and maybe that was their original vision to do that, but since the PlayStation couldn't do it, I think it kind of prevented them from making a bad game, and it made a really, really good one.
Well, from what I understand, the guy who was in charge of redoing the cinematics was a over-the-top action movie director that Hideo Kojima was a fan or knew about. So
there are dangers. Yeah, there are dangers of remaking a game, because you never know, like, maybe someone completely different is going to be in charge of this. And the game itself might come out very different than the original, and not a lot of people are cool with that.
Exactly, right.
I was obviously not cool with that.
But moving on.
Another game that was from the PlayStation and remade on the GameCube.
Yes.
However, I want to say, completely different circumstances. I actually think this one's really good.
Oh, this one I think is way better than the original PlayStation version.
I've been talking too much. I'm going to let you have this one.
Resident Evil Remake.
Yeah.
I love this game so much. So, the original version on the first PlayStation is an acquired taste nowadays, I will say.
Yeah, it is.
So, at the time, even, it was kind of corny and campy, but now it's just almost, for some people, unbearable camp.
Yes.
And, because it's like you find the rubber hand attached to the gun at the beginning of the intro cinematic, the voice acting, and just like the way the game looks and how blocky it is. Well, there you go. Capcom had a deal with Nintendo. There you go.
That guy caused me so many problems in the early game.
Where they had a 5-game exclusivity deal with Nintendo.
And the Capcom 5. Okay.
Yeah, the Capcom 5.
Long story, look it up. We don't need to get into it now. It's a thing.
It didn't happen.
No, it didn't happen. I mean, it almost happened.
3 games.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's like, so as a part of it, they're like, okay, well, why don't we go back and redo one of our best games? That being Resident Evil. and they took a completely new engine. They took the power of the GameCube. They remade the entire Spencer Mansion. They redid everything about the game. They did new pre-rendered backgrounds, completely upscaled and remade character models. And they actually retweaked the level design so that way returning players from the original PlayStation version could actually have a new experience while having a familiar sense of nostalgia for the original, which I thought was really cool because I like the PlayStation original. I never really beat it because that wasn't my thing back in the day. But let me tell you, buddy, Resi Remake, so much my thing.
Yeah,
I love that game so much.
That one is like, it was trying to be campy and stupid, and the remake just does a great job. Oh, come on! I knew he was there, but he got away from me.
There you go. But yeah, so it kind of it still kind of keeps some of the weirdness, but it like makes it a lot more palatable.
Forgot about the snipers. Good thing
with like new voice acting and all that stuff, and some new quality of life improvements, like the ability to like do a 180 really quick to run away as fast as possible.
Yeah, it's almost like it learned from the other future Resident Evil games that came after the first one, and it didn't like forcibly put that stuff in there.
Exactly. Like, yeah, and so they wanted you to have a good time trying to find things. And in the original, like, did you ever play the original Resident Evil?
Yeah, I didn't beat it, but yes.
Okay, because you remember how certain key items and items in general, you just had to kind of pick out from the background? Because it was easier because it was a 3D model on top of a 2D background.
Right.
That wouldn't work in the remake, so what they did is they actually added a little quality of life thing where there was a little sparkle on top of the item you could interact with or take, and that way you could actually pick it up and find it easier, which I think is just absolutely amazing. And here we go. Speaking of amazing, the music in this game when you get into boss fights.
I love it. I know. I'm going to try. It took me so long to realize that I could have even done this. The plummet attack.
Plunging attacks on the Taurus demon. Yeah. Well, if you stay up here long enough... Yeah, if you stay up there long enough...
I know he will come up there for me.
He'll just jump up there. He doesn't take any guff from you.
Oh, yeah, this is not worth... I need to get it back up there.
Oh, gosh.
I mean, I could attempt to... How much does he take? Not enough.
No.
Well,
you could
go through his legs. Yes.
Yeah, you could.
Let's do this. Let's do this.
You can iframe.
I'm gonna melee him.
Yeah. Screw it. You might as well.
Ooh. Oh, he got me.
Yeah, you've got enough. You got this. There you go.
No. Oh. Oh. Whee! That was so close.
Yeah. Oh man, there you go though. Victory
achieved. All right.
But. Yeah, so it's a lot of little things that they added along with the big updates, that next generation feel to the game.
Yes.
It was just the perfect package for its time. And even now with the HD version that they put out, I'd still say if you've never played the original version of Resi Remake, please give this one a shot.
Yeah, there's actually a Humble Bundle right now with like a ton of Resident Evil games with hashtag not sponsored, but yes, it's a great deal.
Please
and that's in there.
Us.
Please sponsor us, Humble Bundle. We'd be so happy.
I will shill for you if you give me stuff. And I'm not even the one with the YouTube channel. I'll just do it.
Yeah, you're just the guy who does the thankless job in the background of editing the videos. Hey, thank Zach in the comments if you got this far. He is editing these. He's doing a great job.
Oh, thank you. I try my best. I know I'm not the best, but every day I get better.
So, in that same vein of those original games of the Resident Evil, we really should touch on a certain Resident Evil game as being remade. You know, before we touch that, how about 2 and 3? Those are remakes.
Okay, yeah, I almost forgot about. Yeah,
those really are remakes. They're keeping like a lot of like inspiration from the original games.
Yes.
However, there's so much that's just like gone, but at the same time, I don't miss it because I think Resident Evil 2, the remake, is outstanding.
Yes,
it's so good. Haven't played 3 yet, but now I own it because of Humble Bundle. Hashtag not sponsored.
Hashtag not sponsored. I have not played 3 yet. No, I beat 2 and I loved that remake. Granted, it was a heck of a lot easier than the original because of the way that the combat was handled and everything was revamped. Because you know the old Resident Evil games were fixed camera, tank control, survival horror games, and that came with certain expectations.
And it's almost like make it with Resident Evil 4 mixed with 7.
Yes.
But also, it doesn't destroy any of the original puzzle design of the second game, like what we just said would happen with Metal Gear Solid.
Yes.
Or at least I didn't feel that at all.
No, and if they did, they changed it up enough to fit better within this new control scheme and the way things work. Because with the remakes, it's over-the-shoulder, like you said, Resi 4 playstyle, where it's like you have the ability to zoom in and all that stuff, and it keeps the atmosphere alive because you can still walk and aim and shoot if you want, but your shots will miss wildly if you do that. Because you're supposed to, like, stand still and you can get a better shot in, and if when you do that, you're more likely to get all the shots in that you need to take down the zombies and not waste your ammo, which is the whole point of the game. It's all about conservation of ammunition and items. And it, like I said, it keeps the atmosphere alive, which is so important, I think, to a Resident Evil game.
Yes.
And like I said, the only downside for me is that it is easier to kind of play through than the original, so it kind of loses that tension in its own way.
Yeah,
and that's a subjective thing. I know
the originals also had a lot of that old jank.
And it's the same thing with the Resi 3 remake. It's still the same kind of graphical style and all that. But the thing, from what I understand, is that the thing that separated Resident Evil 3 originally on the PlayStation 3 was the amount of choices you had in game, and how not only you went after dealt with the encounters with the Nemesis, but like the different paths you could take with the different characters.
Right.
In the remake, they took away a lot of those choices. Like you didn't, like it didn't really matter how you went up against the Nemesis. The point was like, yeah, these are just predetermined, pre-scripted ways of doing things.
Yeah.
Which kind of takes away some of the choice that you had in the original game, which, again, Resi 3 was kind of considered like the black sheep of the original trilogy.
Yeah, it kind of was.
And for some obvious and kind of misplaced reasons. But, you know, to take the main selling point of the original away from this, to kind of make it all into, like, not a homogenized, but a sort of consistent style, I think kind of takes away some of the charm of the original. Or of the new game, to be honest. But like you said earlier, a lot of these remakes and remasters are also about a lot of give and take.
Right, and I think some of it, which is really important with Resident Evil 4, you got to make sure that the people who are making the new one fully understand what made the original so good.
Yes.
And I think that's why people are so testy about Resident Evil 4 the remake, because I'll just say this at least. The gameplay looks really fun and fine-tuned. The graphics look beautiful.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's going to be a remake in the sense that 2 and 3 were, which means like you're going to tone up how scary they are and try and keep like the original environments and things like that, and the story beats.
Yes.
However, what is important at Resi 4 that people love the original so much is none of those things. Sure, they're good in 4. They're important, but they're not like
the main selling point. I don't know.
Yeah, they're not.
The reason why we love why do you think you loved it so much, Alex, and why other people love it?
You know, when you're watching a funny, bad in the fun way horror movie,
like in very earnest, but not exactly like
wink wink, like Evil Dead.
Yes.
Like, it is genuinely scary, but it's also genuinely funny.
Yep.
Because it looks like it's not trying to be funny, and that's what makes it funny. But, like, they could have, like, secretly been doing that on purpose, you know, but we all kind of know it. That's Resident Evil 4.
Yes.
And that's what we're scared of, because the original Resident Evil 4, from my understanding in Japanese, its audio recording, or its voice recording, they didn't have that camp.
Yeah, it was really serious.
Yeah, and then when it came to the West, then it suddenly got this, the silly factor to it. The voicing was just kind of funny.
Like this sort of self-aware vibe, yeah. Like it knew what it was, and it wasn't ashamed to admit it, but it was also absolutely terrifying at times. Because I remember when I first played it on the GameCube, one of my friends was like the biggest Resident Evil nerd.
Oh my gosh, I had one of those too, yeah.
And so I remember when I first played it, because I had no idea what the game was supposed to be about. And so it's like, you know, you get up to the point where it's like the police officers you come in with are dead, and you're going to the village.
You're already by yourself, and that's just a big horror thing.
Yeah,
it's
you're
scary.
already,
you touch the shotgun upstairs. That was one of the scariest parts of that game for me.
Yeah, the being sieged in that village. Oh my god, and there was no safe space. They could get in anywhere. And that was so terrifying. And
it does so well at doing that, and I genuinely think the remake is going to do that well.
I think so.
What I'm scared of is not that. I'm scared of them voicing it in a way that, you know, your left hand comes off, and the stupid, like, where'd everybody go? Bingo?
Right,
or
exactly.
The stupid stuff. You know, Leon sitting in the throne and just
doing his
chilling
Dante.
out. Yeah, like...
His best Dante impression. Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, that's what people are mostly worried about. And dude, go back. The Resident Evil 4 remake. They're going to be like, okay, sure, but is Leon going to scream the wrong name when Louis dies? Louis!
Yeah. Yeah, or are we gonna have, like, Leon just action movie jumping out of every window he sees just because he can?
Right.
Yeah.
How about let's transition to something fun. Toys for Bob.
Toys for Bob.
Toys for Bob has made some really great remakes.
Oh, I was gonna say I loved Pandemonium back in the day.
Though I've actually heard people call these remasters.
No.
I know. I've heard them
Absolutely
call
not.
it, and they're just wrong. This might have been the game I was thinking of where people are just incorrect.
Yeah, maybe. We are talking about the Spyro Reignited trilogy.
Yes.
Such good games.
Yes, they are.
Really good games. And I'm a huge fan of the originals anyway, so those games are literally my happy place. Did you ever play the original PlayStation versions?
A little, not
Okay.
much, but I did.
Yeah, no,
The first one.
Those three were my childhood. And so the original PlayStation games were my jam. They were my childhood. They were the reason I asked for a PlayStation come Christmas time when I was a kid. And so what I love about them is that they're not big open world games like Super Mario 64 back in the day, where it's like there was like a lot to explore but not like enough to do, it felt sometimes.
Yeah.
Whereas with these, they were smaller, self-contained, and they looped in on themselves. I will say that the original Spyro probably didn't age the best out of all of them. Spyro 2 and 3, there you go. Spyro 2 and 3, I still think are really good in terms of, in terms of holding up. But here's the thing, though. Now with the PS5 not having backwards compatibility at all,
Yeah.
and just now finally getting their PSN subscription service with having the the classics subscription level that they're going to have.
Right.
There was no real good way to get
That thing
PS1 games.
Yeah, that
to
thing
get
alone
those
could really
games.
be an episode in and of itself.
So what Toys for Bob has to do by Activision, one of the few things I think Activision actually did correct, they tasked Toys for Bob to actually remake those games in the Unreal Engine. And so what we got was a unified and just completely redone set of 3D action adventure, like platformer collectathon games, which play extraordinarily well.
They do. There's like a few original snags that just were in the original game, but for the sake of being faithful, they're still there.
Yeah, like the levels are almost exactly the same, save for like some geometry fixing and all that stuff.
Stuff that really should have been changed.
Yeah,
Except for some people who are maybe speedrunners like to exploit certain problems in the original game. Those aren't there, but...
No, but...
Actually, I think I heard that some of them were. I thought I read that somewhere.
Oh, yeah, no, they did actually keep some of the bugs.
Yeah, they kept some bugs on purpose, knowing that people would want to see it and would smile.
Oh, yeah, it makes me smile seeing it. But all the models are redone. All the voices have been recast and redone. Tom Kenny, the voice of Spyro in the second and third games, he actually comes back and reprises his role for all three titles, which...
Yeah, it's not the
Carlos,
the Taco Bell dog.
Yeah, it's not Carlos Alex Rocky, which makes me kind of sad, but whatever. It's all for the sake of like consistency. I get it. And besides, Tom Kenny still does a good job as Spyro, given that youthful, like, can-do attitude. Yeah.
I had a really great time with the first one.
Yeah.
I feel a little less nostalgic towards the second two, mostly because I did play the first one, and then the second two are kind of different. So, Louder Bell.
Yeah.
Good for you.
They do change up quite a bit in the later two games. In my opinion, some of it for the better.
Yeah.
But they're just... Talk about, like, for real, just, like, an absolutely loving tribute to some classic games that are not that easy to get a hold of anymore. And that's one of the reasons, too, I think a lot of remasters and remakes should exist and do exist. It's a means of trying to preserve gaming history.
Yes.
Because with movies and books, it's easier. Because, you know, you can just go to the archives, you can go to a library, you can just pick up the book, or with a movie, you can just, like, digitally store it now.
Right.
Where with games, it's so different.
You could have the file or the disc or the cartridge, but you can't play it.
Right. You need the system, you need working controllers, you need a TV
With component output sometimes.
Yeah, with the proper aspect ratios and all that. It's so much harder to play an older game than it is to read an older book or watch an older movie. Older movie, just get your 4K Blu-ray, just put in any DVD or Blu-ray format, boom, you got it, and you're just watching it. It's great.
Right.
Or streaming services. You can't really stream games all that well because the internet infrastructure is not that great in the United States.
And even once it gets there, I still don't like it because I'm just a physical media guy. I want to know that I own this.
Exactly.
But even still, what do I do when my physical media cannot be played anymore?
Right. Disc rot, unfortunately, is the thing when the lamination starts coming
Whoa!
away from the when the lamination starts coming away from the disc itself and the data is exposed. That's that. Dude, I look at my PlayStation collection every day and I'm just like, oh god, is it still gonna work?
And what about like the Game Boy or just old cartridge-based stuff where
batteries die.
they have a battery, and if that battery's dead, the end.
All of your saves go away and you have to literally go out, buy a set of tools to get in and put a new CMOS battery in, and it's just it's a pain.
It is.
And it's a shame, too. I mean, it was just technology at the time. There was no way for them to store that along with the game on those old cartridges.
Right. So, yeah, I mean, people have opened them up and soldered them to fix that, but are you comfortable with doing that?
No, especially with some, like, really expensive or rare games.
Exactly.
But anyway,
So,
that's a problem for another time.
Yeah, we'll
get into
there's a lot
that.
to this. So just from the little that we've covered so far, I still feel like there's a place for a remake and there's a place for a remaster because of preservation. I almost always want to see remasters first.
Yes.
Unless there is a genuine reason why we need a remake, which is another reason why I think 4 doesn't need it. Resident Evil 4 doesn't really need it because that game is functionally perfect. It doesn't need any more.
No,
it just needs to be able to be played on modern stuff, which, look at this, it actually can be.
And that's the biggest reason I think that they need to exist, and it's unfortunate that is the reason for them to exist.
Right, and I think that remakes happen more often than not because they want to sell or they know it's a big name.
Yeah.
And not so much that it needs to happen. We're going to talk about a certain one. Let me make sure it's on our list really quick. It's not there. We're talking about it. The Last of Us is being remade, and it does not need that.
The Last of Us Remake Part 1.
Part 1. Right, we gotta call it that. It does not need that. And I hate the idea of calling that Part 1, by the way, because I like to pretend that Part 2 didn't happen because it's just such a...
Never played either, so I don't have a proper opinion. I just know that it's like,
I could rant, but it's a divisive game. People who really love the game for the writing and its characters, and the tragic narrative of it, just generally really don't like the second. But anyway, Last of Us Part 1, we're just talking about that.
Yes.
That game was remastered.
Yep.
And it needed it, I think, and it looked and played great.
Yeah, because it went from 30 frames a second to 60 to full 1080p without dropping, yeah.
It still looks and plays great.
Yeah.
It doesn't need it. So, the fact that now we're getting a full-on remake of this, and I think the remaster was for the PS3 era?
Yeah, the PS3 to PS4.
PS4. So,
yes.
right, the original was PS3, and it was remastered to PS4. And I played that version on PS4. It looks and plays great.
Yeah.
Like, great. It does not need anything.
Even on the base
It
model
doesn't even
PS4.
need a remaster touch-up. There's no reason to touch it. It is... I don't want to call it perfect, because it's...
Near perfect.
Some
maybe.
people will. Yeah. Some people call that a double 10 out of 10 game, and you know, double. My reviews.
Yeah.
But it's extremely good. Oh gosh, someone's actually fighting him. That's not a good idea.
No, don't fight Andre. I
no.
love Andre. But yeah, so it's just I almost want to say it's almost like Naughty Dog might not have anything coming out soon that they just really need to focus on. Maybe that's
right. But if they're putting that much work into a game, well, I'm here thinking, okay, a new IP. Number one was my first thing. Like, please, anything else. Just do anything else, or make it Uncharted 5. I don't care if you ended the story in a way that makes sense and you're happy with it. They did the same thing with Witcher 3, and look what they're doing right now, because it's a great game and people love it. Make more.
Yeah. You would think.
You would think.
Speaking of remakes, I probably shouldn't have done.
Now what?
Oh, I was gonna say some of the Pokemon remakes, like
Oh my God.
Brilliant Diamond, Shining Pearl,
Yeah.
where they're good. I mean, they're okay, but until you start going diagonal,
Well, there's actually. So
you
hold
know
on.
way more about it than I do. I'm just saying, it's like,
From a standpoint of casually enjoying Pokemon, yeah. If you were a veteran who's played Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum,
that guy.
you might notice that everything that. Well, here, hold on. What is Pokemon Platinum? Is that a remake? Is that a remaster? It's
No,
neither.
It's a redux.
It's kind of just like, hey, we added a little extra content.
It's a new version. Why don't you tell us a little bit?
So
before
just
we
about
move on?
about the Pokemon screw up. There's actually a lot of. While we're on Pokemon, can I quickly like run through the generations because they've done so many remakes and remasters.
Absolutely,
just
it's your
very
channel.
quickly. So from the original 2 games on Game Boy, I adore those and all their jank. Like every single bit of the problems, I love those games.
Those derpy looking sprites.
Right
They're so
now,
good.
Fire Red and Leaf Green were
Yes.
remakes of those games, ground up, for the specific purpose of filling out the Pokedex of the new games. Because when they made Generation 3, you couldn't trade your Pokemon up, which means like all the Kanto Pokemon couldn't come with you.
Yep.
And they basically had to make a reason, or I'm sorry, a way for you to play all that again. And also the missing Johto Pokemon were largely in Pokemon Coliseum, which is why that game exists.
Right.
Just saying. So anyway, that's why it exists. It existed to fill a purpose. And it's fine because it was old enough that it did kind of need it, even though the Game Boy Advance at the time could play that game, and I did. I didn't even see the need to buy that at the time because I had the game on me.
Yeah, no, see, I was a big Pokemon kid back then, so I didn't care. I'm like, new Pokemon, and it's one I understand and know? Yeah, please, I'll take it. Sure. Yeah, like I said, from the outside, like, Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl look okay, but I know that there's a lot of problems.
Yes.
with
Okay,
those.
so Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, which were also technically
Yes.
remakes of that, but for the Nintendo Switch. But also they're trying to incorporate a bunch of weird Pokemon Go mechanics into it.
Yeah,
The graphics are outstanding. The game is beautiful, but it's also still doing that very traditional, like almost tile for tile remake where this tree goes right here, this house faces this direction. And it's not like taking any inspiration of if you were going to make this game, like if the original developers who made Pokemon Generation 1, you gave them this idea, for some reason it never happened until 2022. And they're
Right.
making it today. It would have never looked like that. You would never put box houses facing in one direction like that. The characters wouldn't be so static. There would be so many changes to the game, and it's almost like they're blind to this sometimes when they make remakes because they're too scared of not being faithful to what the original was.
Right, like they don't want to upset their older fans, but they want to treat their new fans to something absolutely different.
That's a weird case because it was a remake, but kind of, and I still recommend people actually play the original one because it's not the definitive version of that game. And if you're making, this is kind of my rule for a remake personally. If you're going to remake a game, your goal is to make the original obsolete.
Ah, right.
If you don't make it obsolete and there's still like a reason for me to go back and play the Game Boy, which there is, you failed. You failed. Right? So now if you're doing, say, The Last of Us, for example, and it really is like a very, very faithful remake, and all you really did was make the graphics a little bit nicer, like the hair's nicer, sure, maybe. That could be the definitive version of the game, and you might have made the original obsolete, sure. But why is the question at that point.
Yeah.
But for Pokemon, yeah, and most other remakes, you got to make that the definitive version of a game. If not, you should have done a remaster because that already was the definitive version of the game, and you just kind of messed up.
Exactly. Yeah. Right.
Gen 2 did the same thing, and I actually really love that remake of Heart Gold and Soul Silver. I think that might be the definitive version of that game because there's a lot of issues with those. But Gen 3, I want to quickly at least get through the first 4 generations, the ones that we've done the remakes for, because this is important.
Oh yeah, Omega Ruby Alpha
Ruby Alpha Sapphire.
Yeah.
I have some serious problems with this game because it basically took the original game, tile for tile, did a remake of it, but instead had this Metal Gear Solid Twin Snakes problem of putting all the mechanics from X and Y in it, which do not mesh with that game at all. It overpowered your team like crazy. You've got Mega Evolution, you've got XP sharing, like all these abilities. It's nuts. I am replaying the game again, even now.
Okay.
And I got through it the first time because I had like a fun little mechanic thing I was doing. I was like shiny hunting my entire team with it. But it's graphically, it's okay, but I still love sprite art. So I want to play the original. I actually still go back and play the original games much more so over Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire. Honestly, I would never pick that over the original Sprite games, which is like the biggest failure of a remake I can possibly imagine. And then going from there, Gen 4. Now, the Gen 4 remakes, we gotta keep in mind, Game Freak was just done with making Sword and Shield, which were probably the biggest PR disasters they've ever experienced. And aside from all the problems there, they were, in a sense, I think, paying attention to and listening to fan outcry of all the problems with those games, and trying to figure out how are we going to make this next thing that's scheduled for us to make on the table, which is a remake of the 4th generation. How are we going to make that in a way that makes them happy? But also, we want to make sure we do this very quick, because they're forced to make their stuff very fast.
The machine's got to keep marching.
Yeah, Pokemon, it's just its own thing, and I'm not a big fan of the way that they do their business, but hey, that's them.
They've gotten themselves into that position.
Yeah, it's a multimedia campaign. They have to release their new game with the new Pokemon that coincide with the plush toys and the anime and the card game. It's a business, and it just has to do its own thing.
So what was the issues with the Diamond Pearl remake?
So when they got to Diamond and Pearl, they had that option to do basically what the fans were asking for, and they started working on it. Probably, like, I can imagine them working on this in groups and figuring out, hey, okay, let's try and revolutionize what Pokemon should be for the Switch, because that's really what they were asking for, and why people were so disappointed, because they weren't getting any of that.
Yeah.
So if we do, and they say they propose this, and it basically becomes what we will now know as Pokemon Legends Arceus, which is suspiciously a 4th generation Pokemon game taking place in the same region.
Yeah.
It really doesn't take a lot of effort to switch that over from what could have easily been a remake of the original game.
Yeah.
More of like, a remake. If you can't use the word reimagining while coinciding with remake, it's not really a remake. Doing this, at the same time, know that they won't have it ready for their release season, because, Christmas money. You gotta have that freaking Christmas money.
Well, that's where you make the most money, unfortunately.
Unfortunately. So to do this, they outsourced the game to another company to basically make that tile-for-tile, very specific remake that just takes the original game and tries their best to port it. Yeah. Just by, like, tile-for-tile, doing everything exactly the same way it was supposed to, except they added a few new elements to it. And the problems with that were, like you said, you can go diagonal, which breaks some puzzles wide open.
Yeah,
like
I've
the
seen
game
the
was
videos.
Not designed for that at all.
Yeah.
Aside from that, you would think if they're going to make a definitive version of Diamond and Pearl, they would give you everything from Pokemon Platinum, right?
Yeah, I would think so.
None of it is there. None of it.
Oh, then why bother?
Yeah, you want to tell me that Brilliant Diamond or Shining Pearl is a definitive version of those games when nothing from Platinum is actually there? Platinum was made to be the definitive version of those games, and it's not even better than that!
I want Incandescent Platinum. Where's my Incandescent Platinum?
Incandescent Platinum. I want to be grossly incandescent. Yeah. Oh, I can't summon him because I lost my humanity. Darn it.
But yeah, no... Again, it always comes back to that give and take, and in the Pokemon case,
yes,
the take is we've got to just
it's got to come out by Christmas.
Yeah, and it's got to come out on schedule.
Right, and people aren't going to know any better. They're going to spend $60 for each game, no matter what we do.
120 pre-tax.
And then, if we can put in some extra goody good that comes with some of this stuff, then they're going to fall for it.
But
yeah, Pokemon. There's a lot of problems with the Pokemon ones.
Can I bring up a remake, though, that probably did deserve to be done?
Absolutely.
Live Alive.
Ooh, nice recent one, too.
Yes. Oh, my God. So, for those of you who have not kept up with the Nintendo stuff, during one of their recent-ish directs...
Was it actually the last one?
Yeah.
Like Xenoblade 3 was announced in the last one. That's how long it's been since we had a Nintendo Direct.
Yes. Well, we had the, what was it? The Splatoon 3 Direct on my birthday, no less.
Oh, yeah? Did you even watch it?
No.
Yeah, I don't care about Splatoon either.
No, I'm not. I mean, it looks fun, but it's not my thing.
It's not for me.
Yeah, exactly. But anyway, so... Live Alive is actually a remake. Ooh,
nice! One shot!
Wow. Sorry, I got caught up in that moment.
I love this sword.
Yeah, right.
Black Knight stuff.
Yep, Black Knight stuff for the win. So, anywho's, Live Alive is an old 1994 Japan-only Square role-playing game that we never got in the States, which is a right shame.
Yes.
It is made by directed by the same guy who would eventually go on to direct and help make Chrono Trigger.
Yes.
So you play as 7 individuals in 7 different time periods, and each have their own gimmick.
It's kind of a shame that we have to describe what the game is that's being remade, because like we haven't described any of them so far. But this one, like you guys literally didn't even get a chance to play.
No, right? Unless if you're really into the emulation scene, which of course nobody should be into.
Yeah,
the emulation
we've never
scene.
heard of anything like that.
No.
Yeah, we might have
not.
a whole discussion on that. Actually, it might be a great Hitbox episode.
That would be actually. I'd be down for that.
Yeah, that's a good one.
So, anywho's, and the combat is really fun. Like, it's grid-based. That you receive health after each and every battle. You don't have to worry about healing items all that much. And it's like got a sort of active time battle gauge where it's like certain skills you use in battle actually take a certain amount of time to charge. So you have to take into account not only your charge time, but the enemy's charge time. And if your members go down, you've got to heal them. It's really, really cool. And so what they did was they took the original Super Famicom game, which unfortunately didn't look all that good.
No.
Like, they based it on what looked to be like the Final Fantasy V game engine, which didn't look all that great. It looked fine,
but
this one didn't look that great.
Yeah, it looked like it was between NES and Super Nintendo.
And they took it and put it into the HD 2D system they have.
I love that system.
And they have fully utilized it. I'm like 5 out of 7 scenarios in. What I love is that they actually took the engine and they actually put in cutscenes. So instead of something like Octopath Traveler, which just basically was set in that sort of top-down, like, diorama angle, you actually get different angles from the different areas you're in. And you're, like, in the Wild West one, you actually get different views of the town itself. Like, you're actually seeing behind buildings, in front, panning through. And when the bad guys come in to try to take the town and take you out, like, you actually get a full-on view down the road where they're coming from, and as the sun's coming up, you actually get like an Ennio Morricone music sting, and watch as they all start coming in on horseback and everything. It is so cool. And all of these eventually lead back into each other, and culminates into something really cool, which I don't want to spoil here. But, like I said, I think it's honestly worth the $40 they're asking, or the $50. I forget how much it is.
Yeah, I think it's 40.
Yeah, it's worth it. It's a shorter RPG, but in today's world, I think a shorter RPG is good.
Yes, it is.
Especially one as well made as that one is.
Yeah.
It is just such a fun game, and that's why I'm glad that game got remade.
Yes, and Square should keep doing this system and remaking some more of their games, like the next one on this list, because we were dwelling on Live Alive a little too much. Zach's,
I'm sorry.
Zach's a bit of a fan.
I love old school Square. I'm sorry. But go ahead. Why don't you bring up the next one?
The next one? You want me to talk about the next one?
Yeah, sure. Go for it.
All right, I'll at least say its name, and then I'm sure you're going to take over.
Probably.
So, guys, if you didn't know already, Dragon Quest III is also getting the same treatment.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Anyway, Dragon Quest 3.
Dragon Quest 3 is getting it. It looks phenomenal. So if you are... so that's like a remake in a sense that they are, in a way, they probably have to ground up redo everything. Like, technically, they probably do, but they're saving so much and just cleaning up so much of it. It's almost like... you know, you go and you like renovated an old room. You didn't move. Does that analogy make any sense?
No, it totally does. It's like the Final Fantasy Pixel remasters.
Yes.
It's still the same old NES and Super NES games, just with a beautiful new engine. That remake also looks phenomenal. And I cannot wait till they say when it's coming out.
And what they're making next.
Oh, I hope they remake the first 2 games like they alluded to if the third game sells well enough.
I'd love to see Chrono Trigger.
So
there's so many they could do. So yeah, you can do a remaster, right? Even though that remaster, it's kind of a remake. Though I think the Final Fantasy Pixel remasters are, those are closer to being just a remaster.
Yeah, they're closer to being a remaster, but just, yeah, and they even have some of like the original glitches and stuff. Like in the original Final Fantasy, there's
new glitches though.
Yeah. Oh god, that's
not
right.
good.
Yeah. And that's another part of the give and take.
Like you can't suplex a train anymore. Do you know that?
Wait, no, you can't suplex a train?
No, you can do the attack, but nothing happens. What? Like you don't watch it happen. Or like something weird happened. They tried patching it. I don't remember exactly, but
0 out of 10. Don't get those games. Jeez.
And that's one of the games I was waiting. Like, I want to play a very good definitive version of
6.
Final Fantasy VI.
Yes, which you should. Everyone should. I'm not saying because I'm not biased at all, but you know. I'm just saying. But yeah, again, it's that whole give and take. Like, yeah, you can have it, but it's gonna come with new potential hazards. Yeah, so it's
Get out of there.
I don't know. I still wouldn't mind getting it, probably when it's on sale, to be honest with you.
Yeah, me too. I'm waiting for that on Steam. Hopefully that'll happen at one point.
Yeah, or console. But no, it's got to be Steam or iOS, Android. It can't be on console.
Eventually it may, but who knows.
I'm looking forward to the Dragon Quest III remake. You guys should keep that on your radar. It is one of the best Dragon Quest games ever made.
It is.
And you got the
Gargoyle Helm. Very cool.
Oh, nice. There you go.
These guys are coming now. Because the gate's gone.
Oh, yeah. See ya.
Yeah, let's go ring that bell that I managed to do on stream for this episode.
And let's see, is there any other remakes or remasters we want to talk about real quick? Because I know we've probably been running over time.
We have, but there's more, and we have a lot of stuff that we're probably going to cut out of this video too.
Yeah.
But we have more on our list that we were going to talk about. So Final Fantasy in particular is doing a lot of this. And so we're going to talk about one game, like 7. Now, that game is still one of the best games ever made on the original PlayStation.
Oh, yeah.
However, it really could do for a nice touch-up for its gameplay, graphics, everything.
Exactly,
Just because, let's be honest, the PlayStation just doesn't age well.
No.
Even if at its best, it's still, the games just don't age well today.
Like Metal Gear Solid.
Yeah, I would like to see this supposed Metal Gear Solid remake that may or may not be happening.
Yeah, maybe. Well, it's still Konami, so my eyes are like squinted.
I don't I don't trust them. It's gonna take a decade of good games and good faith for me to trust them again.
Trust is a currency, and they'd spent it all.
Right, but so for Final Fantasy VII Remake, that is like a ground-up, beautiful... That's probably the most ambitious remake I've ever seen.
It is, and the fact that they've had to split it into multiple parts, because the story in the original is really a huge story.
Right. I mean, most of why that game was so many discs to begin with was because of just cutscenes. They take up a ton of file space on those discs.
Yeah, the FMVs were absolutely
And they were
huge.
so nice.
Oh, I know. Even as janky as some of them look, especially combining like the in-game polygonal models, like with the really small elbows and stuff.
Yeah.
With the beautifully rendered
hands. I know, and then like suddenly everyone looks amazing.
Yeah. Honestly, it's whatever. It's fine, but yeah, no, the fact that that's split up into multiple games, and the fact that it's just looking to try to do something new with the story while trying to still tell a similar story to the original.
Yeah, the only thing that makes me raise my eyebrow at that one at all is the spirit thing, where it seems like there's like characters that are self-aware that the game happened already.
Yeah.
Or something like that. Are they changing the fate? I'm not trying to spoil any of the game. It's just kind of odd.
Yeah, so that's why
they're all down there.
Well, you made your bed, go sleep in it.
Yeah, right.
So
yeah, I'm very excited about that one because
yeah,
this might be hypocritical of me. I'm very happy that game's happening, but I still think there's a place for the original.
Absolutely.
It's not like it made it obsolete.
No.
So in that sense, it's almost like a remake that's doing its own thing and being what a modern Final Fantasy VII would be. But since it's happening so much later than the other Final Fantasies,
yes,
that it's like it has a chance to be so much more than what it originally could. And if they remade it in the same way that it originally was or remastered it, it's not really the same thing. Like, sure, if you're running around and your polys look really nice and you're in the overworld and you got all the original stuff, it'd be fine. It'd be fun. I mean, I'd be happy it exists, but at the same time, people were nostalgic for the original. They probably just want that.
I'm nostalgic.
Right.
Because, see, and that's what I was kind of hoping we'd get, because I love turn-based combat, but honestly, the real-time action combat we get in 7 is really fun.
Yeah, it is.
It is so good, and they actually do incorporate
even like the motorcycle stuff. And
yeah.
They've like reimagined what that would be.
And they actually
did incorporate from outside.
They did incorporate some turn-based mechanics into the new game as well, in terms of like limit breaks, magic, and item usage. So yeah, I'm glad that at least it's getting remade, but I almost don't want to get it until the whole thing is done. And that's gonna take until I'm like in my 70s before we get it.
No, there's only 2 more parts, and the next one is coming this next winter, so it's not gonna take that long.
It's just... It's just the way it feels. You know what I'm saying?
It feels like that, yes. However, I do want to point out, remember that this is still a business, and they have to have money to make more, and they did tell us outright that they were only able to have as many parts as they were financially able to justify to investors. So, had people like you bought the first part and just played it, there probably would be 5 parts to this, and we would have everything just as glorious as the first part, but instead we're probably going to start flying through story.
Well, my thing, though, is like, and this is just a personal thing for me, I still think we should have gotten at least outside of Midgard in the first part. Like,
if you play it, you wouldn't say so.
I've been trying.
Well, they also had to justify building everything. Like, if you see how many things they changed with that game, it's phenomenal how much groundwork had to be built.
In the original story, though, Midgard is only like, or
it doesn't matter.
It's only
does
like 2
not
to
matter.
5 hours.
It has nothing to do with this. And that's what I'm trying to say about this being a remake. That is that game.
I know.
This is this one. And if you play the other one, you would not even question it.
And that's why I'm saying it's a personal qualm of mine. It's one that I just have a harder time getting over. That's all.
You would get over it immediately if you just played it. Like,
I've been trying, but I haven't been able to get over here as much as I'd like.
You should buy it.
But no, I can get it on Steam now, I think. I think that's finally off of the Epic store, which I'm not supporting Epic right now.
God, no.
But yeah, so like you said, Square's been doing that an awful lot with a lot of their IPs, Dragon Quest, a lot of Final Fantasy. 10 and 10 2, the remasters for those, when those first came out on PS3, and then
those are so nice.
I think what Timothy was saying, how they actually improved a lot of stuff in those remasters.
And kept the original. They had to, well, the one for 8, from my understanding, was a remake because they lost the source code.
Yeah, the source code's been long gone for 8.
So they had to redo the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, but here's the thing.
Yeah, 7 is obviously the favorite child, getting that special treatment.
It's Final Fantasy 8, though. It's like,
oh, good, it's back here.
Missed that much. 9, I'd love to see 9 get a good remake, though. I liked 9 quite a bit. Because of the fact that it was just built so much on the history of the series.
It did get a remaster.
It did, and
I have it on
good.
Switch.
Yeah, it looks really nice, and it looks really cool.
Yeah, a lot of the Final Fantasy games are getting good, I'm going to say good, remake and remaster treatment across the board. The pixel ones people have had some issues with. Mostly, you can't buy them on consoles. That's the biggest thing. And you know it's a business tactic. They're putting it out on the stuff they don't think is going to sell as much first, and then hope people double dip when they get it on consoles later.
Yeah, well, honest to God, though, if I wasn't waiting for a sale or anything, I probably would have done so.
Yeah, I would have fallen for it, too.
Well, that's my thing, too. Like I've said before, I have a terrible habit when it comes to, like, the fear of missing out. Like, oh, gosh, if I don't play this now, I might not get the chance again kind of thing, you know? I don't care that other people are playing it.
Dang it!
I just want to be able to experience it in the way that I want to.
Demons.
Yeah, me too. But you know what I'm saying, though? Like, it's just that I hate that, and I hate that about myself, but it's just that basic human psychology.
Right.
That not everyone is not immune to, basically.
Exactly, that is a problem. There have been a lot of fun remasters and remakes that have come out lately. Good God!
Like the Klonoa?
Yes, like Klonoa. That's a big one.
The Reverie, the Fantasy Reverie releases, yes. Oh my God, those look so good. I want those so bad. I have Klonoa on my PS3 as a digital version, because I remember playing the demo disc of that back in the day.
I heard the team that did Panzer Dragoon is also making some new remakes.
Ooh,
Sega stuff.
Yeah. Oh,
I don't remember what though.
Okay, so
I don't think they announced it. It's just a rumor.
Because I'm seriously waiting for for Panzer Dragoon Zwei and Saga. Like, if they can pull off Saga as a remake, that would be so amazing.
Yeah.
That would just... For those of you unaware, Panzer Dragoon Saga was a Sega Saturn RPG that came out at the end of its life. It did not sell all that well. I think it only sold, like, maybe in the 5 digits of sales.
That's terrible.
And it's become one of the rarest games and one of the most popular rare games in existence. So you have a hard time getting a hold of it anyway, because it's also for Sega Saturn.
Yeah.
So, if that can get remade, again, good reason for a remake. Not available, hugely expensive, and really wanted.
The game I want remade / mostly remastered.
Yeah.
You know what, here. Because we've basically touched on this. We'll probably
Yeah.
we'll save that to the end. I know this is an enormous episode already, but let's cover the last game series that we were going to talk about, and
yes,
then we'll
yes,
say
yes.
like ones that we want to see like a remaster and a remake of the most.
Yes.
So the next game series that we wanted to touch on was The Legend of Zelda.
Yes.
We've had some interesting remakes and remasters of these.
Yes.
And I don't really know what to call like the 3DS games. Like, what is Ocarina of Time 3DS or Majora's Mask? Is that a remake or?
Well, because with the Majora's Mask one, I know if you played it on the new 3DS, you had some new functionality and new quality of life improvements.
Yeah, it even uses that tiny little analog thing that
as a camera.
that I hate. I hate that thing, but
Yeah.
yeah, you can do it. But at the same time, it's the original game.
Right.
Like the models and everything. So it's almost like you could consider that a remaster. If we're gonna call Live Alive a remaster, this is a
Well,
remaster.
this is more of a... Well, yeah, true. It's more of a remaster
Yeah.
because it's still the basic game underneath, but it just is so... But they call it a remake? I don't know. Like I said, it's the nomenclature is so weird.
Mm-hmm.
But for good Zelda remakes, Link's Awakening for the Switch.
Yes.
Oh my
Now that
gosh.
is a game that absolutely needed it.
Yes.
Because not enough people got to play it.
Nope.
For the Game Boy. It did get a Game Boy Color remaster.
Yes.
As well. And that was a really good game. However, the remake is like taking all of what the original puzzle design was, all the original game, and just finding a new way to make it all interesting and fun.
Yes.
It got rid of like the tediousness of the item flipping and management like that.
Because you had 4 face buttons instead of the 2. And so you didn't have to keep pausing, re-equipping, pausing, re-equipping.
Yeah, it does have some of the old issues with that game where the Game Boy, just because of the limitation of the space, had to make you find ways to like walk around stuff, and you like to get from point A to point B.
yeah.
It was tedious.
Like the tower dungeon.
Not even just the dungeons, just the main map. There's
Yeah,
a lot
true.
of tediousness of like running around and doing silly walk arounds
Until
and
you
stuff.
get the warp functionality, which is really helpful.
Yes, that does help a ton in that game.
But it
yeah,
looks good. It runs well.
It does. I think that absolutely needed to happen. And if anything, I really wish that that kind of game is what we had instead of Link Between Worlds. Though normally I would want new games.
Yeah.
Almost, you say we were saying like Metroid. And you offer me a Super Metroid remake. Or even a remaster, just because, you know, I would say not to do that. Oh, by the way, guys, in Fake Wall.
Yep, took me forever to find that, and I was so mad when
There
I
wasn't a
found it.
message there, so I want to make sure that I said that. I'll eventually review Link Between Worlds. I have problems with that game.
And I can understand that. For my take personally, I think it's a really good game. I think it did what it was supposed to do really well.
Yeah.
And I think that the added mechanic of merging into the walls and using that as a basic mechanic, plus the renting system, really opened up a lot of things for me. And I thought that was really cool.
If we got those in an actually new Zelda game and not the Link to the Past map, I would fully agree with you that it was an interesting attempt, though I'm not a big fan of it. But yeah, so if it was a new thing, because I think what it does, assuming you're playing it like it is Link to the Past, because some people treat it like a remake,
Yeah.
and that it definitely does not deserve to be.
Originally was supposed to be, though.
Yeah, I know, and it should have been, because I remember the original concept art for it was so cool. I've kept it as a wallpaper.
Yeah, because Miyamoto wanted it to be a remake, but everyone was like, why don't we make it something else? Yeah.
Yeah. Not a good call. I don't think
Yeah.
so. I
There-
really dislike that game.
Mr. Miyamoto actually has reasons for a lot of the things he does, so it's like, I can understand where he was coming from.
We
with
do
that.
actually have an episode coming where we're eventually going to be talking about just specifically Miyamoto ideas, the good and the bad, because there's a lot of both.
Oh, yeah, well,
He's a brilliant man, but also he's made a lot of mistakes.
Yeah, well, for a career as prolific and as long as his is, yeah, that's going to happen.
It's going to happen eventually.
But no,
Hindsight, too, is mostly what his mistakes are.
2020, yeah. But yeah, I would say that the Link's Awakening remake definitely makes the original Game Boy version obsolete. So that really fits into your criteria of a good remake. And my other thing too is the HD remasters of Wind Waker and Twilight Princess for the Wii, or the Wii U rather.
Okay, yeah, so the Twilight Princess one, from my understanding, is good. It's the Wind Waker one that people hate. And I've seen it, and I don't like it either.
See, I thought that more people had more issues with the Twilight Princess.
Okay, tell me about what did they screw up with Twilight Princess. I'll tell you what they screwed up with.
Because the thing is, like, it was mainly to do with, like, the fact that it was supposed to be an HD upscale, but a lot of the textures were still from GameCube Wii era.
They didn't fix the textures.
No, they didn't fix a lot of the textures. The lighting was still pretty wonky. It was a textures issue. There wasn't as many quality of life improvements. You had to have the wolf amiibo in order to unlock some of the extra content that was already in the game in this new version in order to be able to get it. There was just like a lot of... It was like, again, one of those death by 1,000 cuts thing. Like, were people glad to have it? Yeah, but it was just a lot of that sort of stuff. What was wrong, or what did people complain about with the Wind Waker HD remake? Because that looks really cool to me.
They did do a couple things that fixed up some, what people would say is problems. I never had a problem with the Triforce Hunt, but apparently people hated that.
Yeah.
So
because it was such a time and money sink.
Yeah, but at the same time, like, I felt like in the game that when I was playing it, I had fun with it because I felt like I had nothing to do with my money, or I was just swimming in it.
Yeah.
And it was something that finally gave, like, a purpose to all of that, and it gave me a chance to play the game longer. I liked the game so much, I wanted to play it longer.
Oh, I don't blame
you know,
you.
that's good if you really just enhance it like that. So they made a way that you basically just... I don't remember exactly what they did, but it's much, much easier.
I see.
So the thing that they're really upset about, that I can't stand, is the bloom. They basically destroyed what the original game looked like, and instead of it being... It's not cel-shaded anymore. It's just bright bloom everywhere.
So they took the vibrancy of the and the saturation of the original colors and just kind of overblown it, I guess. Is that what you're saying?
It's really overblown. Like, it's ridiculous looking. And the fact that, like, you know how, like, when you see... A lot of anime games will cel shade, where you have, like, you know, distinct lines of where the contours change from one color to the next. That's how Wind Waker looked. That was its style.
Yes.
It does not have that anywhere in the remake. Master, see, there I go.
Yep, and that's what I'm saying. It's just everything is so interchangeable. But yeah, no, I see what you're saying, though. Like, I don't have as big an issue with that, but yeah, a lot of those little details, too, would probably be like, yeah, this kind of sucks. Although, I do love the fact that there is a fast sale, so it kind of helps to speed up things. And yeah, from what I understand, too, I think they actually put some of the Triforce pieces in some of the dungeons that you go through in order to speed things up.
I don't really like that either.
Yeah.
Like, what I liked more about, like, knowing that I had to go into my menu, pull out the Wind Waker, and play the music to change the direction of the wind, was so that I had to choose one that was going to, like, multitask of all the things that I wanted to do while I was playing. I didn't continuously have the ability to keep changing it, because if I did, then I would just aim the sail in the wind and you broke the game. So I feel like that update was just made for whiners who didn't want to play the game the way that was the game was designed. So that changes like that, I'm not sure how I feel about them.
That's fair. Still though,
I'm glad it got remade.
Yeah.
But I hope if it ever comes to the Switch that they fix that.
Like, give you the option between original and new, like the Master... Oh, like the Halo Master Chief Collection.
Yeah, make it so that, like, there's a Master Mode or something when you start, and it's the original game, versus, you know, a new version where they have the Triforce pieces moved, and honestly, I wish you could turn the bloom off. The bloom is... I'm telling you, man, the bloom is terrible.
No, I mean, I do remember watching videos and stuff for it. It's just like... At the time, it didn't look bad to me, but it's been a while since I've looked at it, so my memory is not as good on it. That's mostly it for the Zelda stuff, because, yeah, I have no idea how to categorize the 3DS remakes or remasters or whatever, you know?
Yeah, they're just there. So how about we'll move on to what game would you want to see remade the most and remastered the most?
Yeah. Okay. Personally, to see remade, and I've been hearing rumors that it might be true.
Yeah.
The first two Golden Sun games. I'd love to see them be remade. Because they were supposed to be one whole game originally. But memory constraints on the Game Boy Advance didn't allow that.
It's so cool if that was going to be one game.
And also, too, they could actually fix up, like, some of, like, the hidden mechanics with switching around the Jin, like, making it so you knew more about what was going on. Maybe fixing up the script to where it's not so wordy, and just making it look as, like, groundbreaking or look as cool as it did originally on the Game Boy Advance. Because, dude, having those 3D camera movements in that game, that's what sold the battles for me.
I wonder who would be responsible if you got anybody to do that Camelot
I'm not sure if I'd want Camelot to go back to
it. See, that you have to have Nintendo step in. I don't think they can.
technically Nintendo does own the IP for it, but that would be my thing. And
Get
also
out,
to just redo Dark Dawn as a part of that as well. Because again, don't get me wrong, it's not a bad game, but it's not a great Golden Sun game.
Yeah.
And that's my problem with it too.
I'm glad to see that Way Forward has been given a lot of really cool stuff to remake. Yeah, they've been doing great with like Advance Wars, which I don't think is even released yet because of... Whoa! What was that? Oh my god, that was a new move. I never saw it do that before.
Real world events, yeah. That's what I would love to see remade. There's been a lot of rumors going around that that's what might be happening.
Yeah.
I mean, heck,
I would love to see that.
We're getting a new Tactics Ogre game, a remade Tactics Ogre game that was just announced. So it's like, anything is possible.
Yes. Oh my god, I'm going to do it.
Yeah, you're going to do it, buddy.
Oh my god, I'm going to do it.
And you got it.
Boom! I hated this boss. Just because I was playing as like this slow tanky knight with no magic.
Exactly. But that's what I would love to see remade.
What about a remaster?
Ooh, for a
like
remaster?
Something you don't really want them to mess with as much.
What was it? Rocket Robot on Wheels from the Nintendo 64. Do you know that one?
No.
So it was the first game by Sucker Punch, who would go on to make the Sly Cooper and Infamous games. And so you play as Rocket, a robot on one wheel, so the title is already wrong.
Oh, this game! Yeah!
Like, as a 3D collectathon, I still think it holds up
really
well.
They would remake that. I don't think that would be justified or remaster.
That's true, but I just love the way it looks. It's that weird, like, blocky, cartoony look that I think really should still
Toys for Bob could do a great job with that.
Yeah, true.
But it won't happen.
Yeah, but that would be my choice, though. Because
it's like, though people have pointed out what could happen now. Shoot, I didn't even realize you were here. Toys for Bob, now Microsoft.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, they might actually have the ability to make a Banjo-Kazooie.
Oh, that'd be so good.
Wouldn't that be amazing?
Oh, that'd be so good.
Oh, here's how you do it. Yeah. You combine both. Like you did with Spyro and Crash. You combine them. You do Banjo-Kazooie, Banjo-Tooie as one game you buy.
Yeah.
Charge full price. No one would care.
Oh no, I wouldn't.
And then a few years later, you make Banjo 3E.
The real Banjo
3E. People would lose their minds.
Oh, that'd be so good, dude.
Right, now you want to do this after the boss fight.
Yeah.
Because I made the mistake of doing that first, and I got slaughtered. Because these guys follow you in there.
But still, though, that would be my choice. The other ones I could think would be, like, older RPGs. But then again, you can just make so much better now with modern technology for a lot of those old RPGs. Like, Lunar Silver Star Story. One of my absolute favorite PlayStation 1 RPGs of all time. Same with Lunar 2. But, again, you can just kind of remake those. Just do another HD 2D style with the pixels and the real 3D diorama world.
I'm still not sure how I feel about categorizing the HD 2D ones, because I'm glad we're calling them remasters, because I don't think it's a... something in me doesn't feel like it should be called a remake. When it's a remake, I want to see it like what you would do today, as opposed to remaster, and that's like the polish, the maximum polish you could ever get out of a remaster.
Well, I think it goes good for a remake, because like you said, it makes the original Super Famicom version of Live Alive obsolete. Number one, because you can play it. And number two, there's so...
Yeah. Had to dig that in there.
Yep. I had to do it to him. So, but not only that, there's a lot of quality of life improvements. There's a great tutorial system. There is an in-game radar that you can use, like if you get lost, because it's an old RPG. Sometimes you don't know where to go.
Oh, he wasn't there when I swung.
Nope.
Dumb.
So so it can show you where to go if you get stuck, and just a lot of little stuff, and it just looks and plays and runs so much better.
That was the grab.
Yep. Plays so much better than the original Super Famicom version that I would be fine with calling it a remake. But those would be my choices and the ones I can think of. What about you, sir, while you're trying not to get killed by vine horrors?
Yeah, so I'm going to start with the remaster, because that seems to be the easier thing to do.
Okay.
And I'm a little biased by this because of, one, being married to someone who's an absolute nut for this game, and I'm sure you already know exactly what I'm going to say. And I'm also kind of cheating because, sort of like Golden Sun, this is going to be a multiple game thing. But I need to see Monolith. Maybe I'm also stuck on Monolith, because right now, offline, I'm playing through Xenoblade Chronicles 3, and oh my god, guys, buy Xenoblade Chronicles 3. That game is so good! But putting that aside for the moment so I can calmly tell you about this.
Yes.
Monolith is incredible, and they really went undersold, or like undercredited for basically making Zelda Breath of the Wild.
Yeah.
If you've heard of that game. And a lot of other work they've done for Nintendo.
It's a very underground game.
Yeah, nobody's really heard about it yet. It's kind of breaking out.
Yeah.
And then, aside from that, they have such an interesting history.
Yes.
Yeah, like, kind of breaking off from an original pitch from what was going to be Final Fantasy VII and became Xenogears. Moving on from Xenogears, making Xenosaga, and, like, jumping companies each time and very frequently.
Yeah.
They got a crazy history. While they were with Namco and then Bandai Namco, they made the Xenosaga trilogy.
Yep.
3 games in there, they're very good. Now, I think the first and the third are their best, ironically, just like Xenoblade. But, the second one was still, it was, they didn't have enough money for that one, or time, and they tried a lot of new things, they made a lot of weird changes, and it
Didn't work. Okay.
No, not really, got some problems. But still, I really, really think that those games need to be brought back. One, they are super expensive and hard to find.
Yeah, I have the first 2, but God help me if I can find a decent and cheap enough copy of the third game at a decent price.
Yeah, and you've probably seen me show it in video for reviews, but Kim has a physical of all 3 of those games.
Yep.
And I had to talk her into buying the third one when we saw it. It was a lot of money, but it was at a half-price store. It was like a discount place already. So like, Kim, it's never going to get better than this. That game will only get more expensive. And I even had like a gift card or something. Like, use this. I don't even care. Take it. You buy that game now.
Yep.
I don't remember. Do you just step
Yeah, just
in?
step on.
Yeah, this one.
Yep.
Oh, yeah,
Takes
yeah,
it
yeah.
back down to,
They'll
Fire
find
Emblem.
out. Oh, it's like the big surprise.
I'm sorry.
This is like one of the coolest parts of the game. Like, you play so far. Like, really, we did. We played like an hour, more than that, much more than that, in Dark Souls. And through this whole time, I just found an elevator, and it takes me right back to where I started. I love that.
That is really nice.
That's
yeah.
amazing level design.
That is what I will agree with you that in that regard, yeah, this game is really good in
Yeah,
that
like,
bit.
you notice all the loading zones we went through? Mm-hmm. 0. The whole time.
Either that or they were masked really well.
Yeah, they were. I've actually forced it to even stutter from trying to load, from like rushing through like multiple big areas at once.
Yeah.
There we go. Back to resting at the beginning.
There you go.
And I still can't level up.
Nope.
But yeah, this is a great place for us to begin and end this. So I'm gonna say this from my surprising remake pick.
Okay.
You would probably think I would say something like Super Metroid, but no, I think that game's perfect. I want new Metroids. Dread was perfect for me. I just want new Metroid. I have played the old ones a dozen times each because
Yeah.
they aren't making new ones. I want the new ones.
Please.
So I'm gonna give you a weird one. I want to see a complete remake, a faithful remake of Zelda 2 on the NES.
No, that's not weird at all. I want that.
I want to see that
I
so
want that,
bad.
yes.
Because that game, the idea is not bad.
No.
The combat sounds really cool. And it is. Once you're into it, it's really cool.
It can be, yeah.
And even keep like the Zelda theming, but make it a 2D action game that can go into a top-down menu, like, overworld, and you can, like, navigate from there. You have your random encounters and so many secrets everywhere.
Yeah.
Now, that game was cryptic as heck, and there's a lot of issues with the game. I've reviewed it,
Yes.
so you can check that one out. But it's because I think it has a lot of problems that need to be reworked, and people pass that game off as just the bad one. And I think they're not paying attention to all the really cool stuff that it did do.
Yeah.
That game basically had to fail so Link to the Past would soar.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to see, and just make it even better.
Yeah.
Basically make it an actual remake of Zelda 2, like faithfully, like gameplay-wise, but call it Zelda 3. That's my big thing. They never made Zelda 3.
No, they didn't,
I
technically.
want Zelda 3.
Nope.
So, there you had it. If you guys have ideas for remasters or remakes or what you think makes a good remaster or remake, let us know in the comments. This is now our longest episode we've ever done. I'm not going to tell Zach how long it was until it's over, unless you want to hear your reaction, see his reaction now as I tell him. How much editing do you think you're going to have to do this week?
Dude, I've got Final Fantasy XIV and Dungeons & Dragons to worry about. How much more am I going to have to worry about?
Well, as of right now, this video is 1 hour and 40 minutes long. We got a lot of cutting to do. I'm sorry. You have a lot of cutting to do.
When am I going to do this? When, sir?
I had had a good time, though. I hope you guys did, too. But anyway, thank you all so much for joining us for this episode of HITBOX. If you enjoyed the show, you can help us by supporting us on Patreon with the links in the show notes in the video's description. For those of you on YouTube, remember to like and subscribe for more. Be sure to let us know what you thought of the show and what other topics you'd like to hear us cover in the future. And special thanks to all of our Patreon members. See ya.
See ya. I'm never gonna sleep.